Yeah, but it's not the element. It's what the element does. He can do different things with it. You can heal with it. You can melt rocks. You can melt people. You can make yourself glow and
Melt
kill
your
with a touch.
child.
Yeah, your dog.
Melt your picket fence. Your neighborhood, your nice neighborhood, and
Yeah,
your
will it
nice,
melt?
your nice slightly peeling paint mailbox.
Maybe some Velveeta cheese to dip some chips in. Fun like that.
Melt your Taco Bell burrito.
Yes. You want a Mexi melt.
You want your enchilada, your street taco. Just melt that thing and make it all that gooey and just
and you can
swallow it.
Drink it with a straw. It'd be great.
Drink it with a straw. Maybe put some Sprite in it. I don't know.
I think you're losing your mind.
I think we're going too far, but this
Cinematic Fantastic.
Klaatu, Barada, Nikto.
I'll show you who I am and what I am.
Bitten by a werewolf and lives, becomes a werewolf himself.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to the Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Weatherford.
And your other host, William Weatherford.
Get ready for opinions, dad jokes,
and bad jokes
as we watch and review sci-fi and fantasy films from the classics of yesteryear to the new favorites of today. How are you doing? Welcome, listeners, back to Cinematic Fantastic. This is episode number 4. Tonight we're going to be talking about today, whatever it is for you.
we're gonna be talking about. What was that noise? I don't seriously know what that noise was. That was the invisible ray.
That was the invisible ray hitting us.
The ray may be invisible, but it sure is loud. It's not silent.
It is loud, actually. And the invisible ray can melt things. No, it's called the invisible ray.
It'll melt your mind in this epic-tastic film.
We're going to give this movie kind of a glowing review.
So, basically, this movie is, we haven't really done science fiction movies since, A Trip to the Moon. That's, your classic sci-fi stuff. But we're finally getting into some sci-fi classic stuff with...
It's starting to creep in.
It's vanilla science. You have your... What was the... Space Flux.
Oh,
the
right,
card
right.
game Flux, there's, a bunch of themes. One of it is, the classic space sci-fi version with, your laser pistols and, bug-eyed monsters and stuff.
That's the 50s, yeah.
Yeah, that's the stuff we're encroaching onto, that classic horrorness. Although it doesn't have as much 1950s cheesiness.
All right, wait a minute. What about Invisible Man? That is very sci-fi.
Yes, you could argue for that, except it was
Yeah.
presented as a, Universal monster movie, a horror thing.
Oh, hey, look, there's more science fiction in their horror than not.
But the difference between that and Invisible Ray is that this is marketed to be a science fiction movie. Now, the summary, basically, from however much we've watched most of it. We had to stop almost near the end. We haven't seen the end yet, but basically the plot is we have a scientist and, I don't know, a couple other family alternative characters who go with him, but he's sort of the main character.
His wife and his mother live in the same house.
His wife and his mother, who happens to be blind for, trying to see into the future with the invisible ray, which is weird. But, the plot is, he's studying this invisible ray that's coming from Andromeda, of which it's, it can, see into the future. I guess if you get
it can see into the far past.
It can see into the past and stuff like that, timey-wimey stuff. And but there's also this asteroid, that's also come from Andromeda, I think, that has hit the continent of Africa, and it's made out of this material called Radium X, which
it's not vibranium.
It's not vibranium. Dad made that joke earlier, but
yeah.
But the weird thing is, it's you're combining the word element X, which would be cheesy on its own, with radium, which was, of course, discovered by Marie Curie. So somebody be reading their Curie books. I don't know how recent it is though. Was it in the 1930s?
Marie Curie, I think was it was late 1800s or early 1900s, one of the two. I'm trying to remember it was early 1900s, I think. It was way back. So people knew what radium was.
So it was fairly recent though that
Yes.
the discovery was made though. So it seems like this mystical new element that they discovered, that they're just tacking on the word X to make it mysterious, you know. Like,
But they know it's deadly. It's deadly though. That's what killed Marie Curie and her husband. I mean, they discovered it and it killed them.
yeah, but that's just it's cheesy when you take element X, you call it element X. They usually do that sometime for like cheesy effect. You put it with radium and it just makes it all the more cheesy. It's like, okay, element X is fine, but like why radium X? Just why radium X? But the thing is, so far from watching, there hasn't been too much with the invisible ray, actually. It doesn't really get too much of a part of the movie, because basically the movie goes, oh, there's an asteroid that went from Andromeda, and he goes to investigate this rock, and somehow through interacting with it, even with a hazmat suit, he gains magical powers to glow, and like a thirst for like killing people. I don't know. They do raise some stakes in this movie, I can agree, but
I have to say he already has a bad attitude, and we'll talk about that during the plot part.
But toward the end of it, he's like just murdering people one by one based off of like a random church statue area, I guess. There's just a lot of weird mishmashed elements of this movie where it's like, okay, this dude's studying an invisible ray, but we don't do too much with that because there's a asteroid that's come from Africa of a mysterious radium X, you know, and
they got to go find it, and
they gotta go find it, and it gives them the powers. That's like, why not call him the asteroid from Andromeda or something?
Yeah, but it's not the element; it's what the element does. He can do different things with it. You can heal with it. You can melt rocks. You can melt people. You can make yourself glow and
melt
kill
your
with a
child.
Touch. Yeah, your dog.
Melt your picket fence. Your neighborhood, your nice neighborhood, and
yeah, will it melt?
Your nice, slightly peeling paint mailbox.
Maybe some Velveeta cheese to dip some chips in. You know, fun like that.
melt your Taco Bell burrito.
Yes. You want a Mexi melt.
You want your enchilada, your street taco, just melt that thing and make it all that gooey and just
and you can
swallow it.
Drink it with a straw. It'd be great.
Drink it with a straw, maybe put some Sprite in it. I don't know.
I think you're losing your mind.
I think we're going too far, but the invisible ray doesn't do much, so we're inventing uses for the invisible ray.
Well, let's put it this way: they use this ray, so to speak, with this cannon thing for different uses. Ultimately, the thing that causes the problem is not the science; it's who uses the science and for what. And ultimately, that's a lot of times that's science fiction for you.
And especially the sort of energy gets to murder people also seems to be caused from like a vendetta for this other scientist who like helps him, who's played by Bela Lugosi.
There you go, the big two together again. Together again.
Yes, but when Bela Lugosi seems to take credit for the discovery of the Radium X, this seems to pull the straws at least a little bit, and then they start into a whole thing. And it's like, there's just a lot of these elements that are in here. But other than those, the movie is actually, pretty well presented. I mean,
it's not bad. It's not bad at all.
It's universal stuff.
Yeah, and it came out in 1936. It was directed by Lambert Hillyer, and Lambert Hillyer actually directs Dracula's Daughter that we have coming up in a couple episodes. Boris Karloff stars as Dr. Janusz Ruch, the scientist who comes in contact with the meteorite. And also, along with Karloff, you get Bela Lugosi, you get a couple other people that I don't really know.
Yeah, by the way, this main scientist character is indeed played by Boris Karloff, and I did not realize this until we got to, hairline the end of our watch time, was when I was like, wait, is that Boris Karloff? And then Dad's like, well, obviously it is. And I'm like,
oh, we did meet Boris Karloff. Dr. Rook is Boris Karloff.
Yeah, first of all, I'm used to seeing more of his face, because in this movie he has, he's added facial hair.
He's got a nice stash. He's
grown out his hair and his facial hair in a way that just somehow obscured his look, and I thought he was a whole different person, because I don't recognize. I mean, I haven't seen him in many movies as himself, really, without being, you know, like Frankenstein or something, really, or like looking a specific way. I can recognize the way he looks. Like, in this movie, the style goes a whole new direction that I just was like, wait, is this Boris Karloff at the literal hairline end of our watch time?
It took you a minute. Right. So, originally, there is a movie called Bluebeard, which is not a pirate thing. It's actually based off of of someone who kills wives or whatever.
And there was reference to that in the Night of the Hunter bonus episode we did.
That's true. They called him a Bluebeard. Right. I remember that.
Bluebeard.
Right, Bluebeard. Now, Universal was developing that movie for Karloff and Lugosi, and that did not get off the ground and start. And Universal was like, okay, by the end of 1935, we want a Karloff and Lugosi movie. First, they hired director Stuart Walker, which I don't know if you remember, but maybe we didn't mention it, but he directed Werewolf of London. That was made in 1935.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of this stuff where it's like, oh, we're going to use Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi again. We're going to use them again and again here. But then when they can't do it, they have to put them off. And then this is where we get our next Invisible Ray is their next outing.
Yeah, and they got a screenwriter, John Colton. I don't know what else he's made. But he obviously didn't write very well because Stuart Walker did not like his script and said, okay, I need a 3-day delay before production gets started. And they're like, no, you can't have that. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm done. And he left.
Yeah, but the script is slightly wacko as it is. So it's like, you know, he probably couldn't really get it too perfect. And it's just honestly sort of cheesy in a way. But as I said before, this movie is very well presented, and as you know, cameras and Universal has been evolving at this point, bigger and bigger and bigger. The cinematography and everything makes it look pretty well presented and stuff, actually, for a movie of this sort.
It's not bigger. It to me,
it's upgraded in the sense that you go, okay, what we've been viewing earlier in 1931, they've been ramping up things. Oh, and speaking of which, I had something I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
About this year that when I did production earlier, I had to cut out because it was not relevant to the year. But now it is 1936, the new year for Universal. And as they've been growing bigger, I wanted to talk about when the Laemmles lost control of the studio.
Yes.
So in the year 1936, you know, Universal's ambition would really get the best of the Laemmles because they were getting very ambitious during that time, upgrading and modernizing in the middle of the Depression. It was very riskier, and for a time, it says Universal slipped into receivership, which is, I think, basically another company sort of owns you in the way that, like, they sort of manage your finances, I guess, something. But it was probably a very, very bad thing for Universal, and they were like, they were starting to, you know, the Millennium Falcon. Whenever it was like, you know, that's how I feel like that's receivership is going for them.
Well, quick question, William. Receivership, is that like a way for you to stave off bankruptcy to keep from, you know, going down, you know, completely? It's like a way to stay afloat.
Yes, I believe.
Well, if they didn't do it, there's obviously still a Universal Studios today, so they must have done something to survive.
Yeah, receivership is a situation in which a institution or enterprise is held by a receiver, a person placed in custodial responsibility for the property of others, including tangible and intangible assets and rights, especially in cases where a company cannot meet its final obligations and is said to be insolvent, which means, I guess, they can't really do anything. So basically, someone's having to manage their stuff for them. But anyway, this would come to...
This has been Business Economics Talk with William and Jason.
This has been William and Jason define what on earth business means.
Right. Business, numbers.
It's just business. Lord business.
Lord business, yeah.
Anyway, this would all culminate in their 1936 Showboat remake, which for those who don't know, Showboat was their 28th silent film musical, I think. It did pretty well. It was... But this one was a big budget feature as compared to the previous B-picture original. The new film featured several stars from the Broadway stage version, and unlike the 1929 film was based on the Broadway musical rather than the novel. So basically, they got people from the Broadway and based on the Broadway rather than the novel like the previous film. They're going big for this one, and especially Carl Laemmle Jr.'s spending habits on this picture. It has particularly alarmed the company's stockholders, and they would not allow the production to start on Showboat unless the Laemmles obtained a loan. Universal was forced to get a $750,000 loan from the Standard Capital Corporation, the first time Universal had borrowed money for a production in all of its history. So it had been going pretty good, but they sort of became Icarus and flew too close to the sun, and they had to get a loan. The dreaded loan.
Yeah, but the thing is though, how did they keep the rest of these films afloat? Because we've got The Visible Ray, we've got Dracula's Daughter is a Universal movie, and there's other Universal movies coming later.
But I will describe how this would be fixed within this year, which is interesting. Sadly, the new Showboat went $300,000 over budget, and they could not pay back the loan. So Standard foreclosed and seized control of the studio a month before its release, forcing the Laemmles out of their studio, just unceremoniously kicked out because you haven't done well with the money. We'll just take over this.
Okay, so Universal Studios wasn't dead in the water. It's just that the Laemmles were.
Yeah, definitely.
So
but
it's
Showboat,
just new ownership, new blood, right?
New blood, new ownership. Even though Showboat was a big success, it wasn't enough to save the Laemmles' position in the studio. So they're kicked out of the studio. They own their own studio that they created. And but because they oversaw the production personally, they still had credit for Showboat. They still got on the credits, even though they got kicked out before the movie released. Standard Capital's J. Cheever Chowden, which is an interesting name. It's Cheever Chowden, or Cowden. Had taken over as president and chairman, joined by C.M. Wolf and J. Arthur Rank, and he instituted several cuts in production budgets. Gone were Universal's big ambitions, and although Universal had a few big names under contract its stars in the making left. So basically, they were trying to fly too close to the sun, it kicked out the Laemmles, and they got new management. However, producer Joe Pasternak, who was meanwhile plowing along his run of musicals for Universal's German subsidiary, there isn't really too much to talk about with that. He released a film this 1936 called Three Smart Girls, which was the box office hit that reputedly resolved the studio's financial problems. So the same year, if they had just waited a couple months, released that film, and got the same money, that would have kept the Laemmles in the studio.
Right.
So yeah, the same year, it's funny how it's like, oh, we're running with problems, and then it just gets resolved immediately a couple months later.
Right. So the thing that's let's give credit where credit is due. Okay. Honestly, Carl and Carl Laemmle Jr. They saw some of these really good properties like Dracula and Frankenstein. They stood behind him. The Mummy. So a lot of those early Universal monster movies would not be there, I don't think, without the Laemmles. They really saw some potential in that. It's just that, I think they, like you said, flew too close to the sun. They didn't know when to say when, especially Carl Laemmle Jr. We've talked about his spending habits, not just with the movies.
He had a whole theater chain he had to cancel.
Wow. So they had lots and lots, sunk into that. Plus, what I'm saying is he not just, those are all things where they spent things in the movie, industry. No, I'm talking about, cars, jewelry, mistresses, probably all this different stuff. His spending habits outside, personal, things. That's what kind of, caused some issues there.
Definitely. So just for real life kids, just spend your money wisely. Put into savings and do all the special things with it. Keep it out of taxes, do all the special things. Keep it, all good and stuff in case you need to pay a loan that you have to pay back your first loan and you can't. And don't be like the Laemmles get forced out of your movie studio.
I don't think when you say someone is showboating around, I don't think it came from this movie, but to be honest,
that would be hilarious.
I don't see why it wouldn't, because showboating, when someone acts like they're a bigger deal than they really are, it kind of fits that first movie. There was another Showboat later, but that was in color, and that's the one I remember. But honestly,
Yeah, I think it's the 1936 version you referred to.
I know this one that I'm talking about came later, I think. It's got some very memorable songs in it. But so let's talk about the director real quick. There's not a lot to say about.
It was a 51 film. You might be talking about a 51
Yes,
film.
that is the one. So let's talk about the director Lambert Hillier really quick. I saw that he did a lot of directing, I think maybe after The Invisible Ray and Dracula's Daughter in you know how you noticed we noticed that a lot of actors were like, yeah, they were in this and that, and they did a couple of sci-fi things, and then it's westerns as far as the eye can see. I'm telling you, that's where everything was going. In the 40s and onwards, it was Western City.
That's where a lot of people went,
Yeah.
We talked about that in, Treasure of Sierra Madre, the third character, what on earth his name was, I think, went to Westerns. Lots of people did that, like Joel McCrea.
Yes.
We talked about in Tarzan. He probably went to a bunch of Westerns. He was, an action movie good person. Well, are we going to have when's our next thing with Joel McCrea, if we ever have it?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But there's a lot of people that did movies with Joel McCrea that are in a lot of these other movies that we're doing. So I'll look that up and see. I'm always fascinated to see when we're going to see some of these actors again. So, Lambert Hillier, he did, of course, Invisible Ray and Dracula's Daughter. They're both, Dracula's Daughter is a cult horror film. He also did a 15-part serial in 1943 of Batman. This one, though, is the first. There's two Batman serials. This one was done during the time when 43, of course, World War II. I'll just touch on it real quick. The main character bad guy is a Japanese spy, so it's very racist in terms of the names they call this guy and the stereotypes that they go into. Again, the actor who plays the villain is not Japanese. They're pulling the whole yellow face thing again, like they did with Werner Oland in Werewolf of London. But anyway, that's another story. He did that one. Me and William have discussed watching that at some point, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, but my ultimate favorite Batman serial was the one where Frosted Flakes and Applejacks did a crossover, and it had Batman on the thing.
He sent the Applejacks to Arkham Asylum.
When Batman crossed over with Looney Tunes, did it cross over to Looney Tunes?
Possibly. No, he did. There was a crossover with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that one was pretty good. I mean, you see Batman fighting the Shredder. I mean, that's amazing. Okay.
I think there was also one with Sesame Street. I think also could have had a Batman crossover.
No.
I don't know. I'm remembering something oldish that had a Batman crossover.
Batman and Robin crossed over with Scooby-Doo as well.
Just the Batman animated series did everything. So.
Well, this Batman animated series was during the 60s, I think. So
I'll have to research that and figure out which Batman crossover I'm thinking of.
So, like I said, he did a lot more westerns and things like that. He directed. He also was a screenwriter. He either wrote screenplays or contributed screenplays. Hillier was directing films from 1917 all the way to 1949, so a good little stretch. And like I said, most of the stuff in the later time periods was, of course, westerns. The rest of the cast in The Invisible Ray, like Francis Drake and Frank Lawton and the rest, I don't remember seeing them in anything else that I recognized. But Francis Drake, who plays Diana, the Janusz's wife, and then Ronald Drake is not this. his character's name is Ronald Drake, but the actress who plays the lady who ends up with him is Francis Drake. But his name is Frank Lawton. Both of them just kind of were in little different parts.
Yeah, but seriously, that confused me. I was like, wait, Francis Drake and Ronald Drake. Wait, no. That's not how that maps out at all.
Well, it's interesting that the interesting thing.
They're not even married.
They're not. No, but the thing is though, they played in dramas and the regular no B movie fare for them. It's just regular A pictures, A or B pictures, and I mean B in terms of not B movies like we would think of B movies, like, horror or sci-fi. They didn't do anything else horror or sci-fi that I know of.
Yeah, what about V. Campbell Cooper?
Oh, well, that she played Mother Rook, but I don't remember anything that she's been in.
Actually, it's a really fun abbreviation, V. Campbell Cooper. Yeah, it's Violet, but I just said that, and I was like, wait, that's actually a really cool abbreviation. So, sorry for messing up your name, but you're dead. So I can do that. I can do that to you all you want.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh, I'm the meme of the guy pointing at somebody's grave with a smile on his face.
Oh, that guy where he's doing that. I know what that meme is from. So, the producer, he was able to get Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff together for The Raven in 1935. They were like, let's do it again. That's why they talked about Bluebeard, but that did not work out, and that's why.
There's so much stuff where they're like, oh, Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff didn't work out. It's literally just so much stuff that won't work out with them. But that's where it gets fresher, is it's like, oh, there's so much saturation with them. As we talked about over this season 2 so far, we talked about all the saturation and how even though they miss out, it can be sometimes for the better.
Yeah, you mentioned when we watched this movie, in the reaction recording that we did, that the film's score was by Franz Waxman,
which was the same guy who did Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, and it's mostly original material predominantly,
just like Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, but it does have some cues that he took from Bride of Frankenstein. He pulled some little musical bits and baubles from that movie.
They do sound sort of the same-ish score from what I can tell. But
yes, but a lot of people did that. They did that a lot.
A bit more saturation with the second film than the first film.
Yeah. So the movie originally had a budget of $166,875.
Not adjusted for inflation, by the way, I don't think.
No, it's not. And that is a fairly lavish budget for an upper-class B movie. So, they started filming in September 17th, and filming ended in October 25, which was over schedule and $68,000 over budget. Stuart Walker later talked about this, and he said, the director who did the picture started 9 or 10 days after I was ordered to start and finished 25 or more days after I was ordered to finish. Now, this movie, the people who went to see this, according to some of the reviews, were mostly men.
That's funny.
They liked the laboratory scenes, and the climax was very exciting.
It's like, women don't like this movie at all.
Well,
you're forgetting a whole half of the population, man.
Yeah, you are.
You're probably not going to make back your money.
A lot of these horror movies, you might have somebody, taking their girl. A guy might go to a movie by himself, but if a girl went to a movie, it was either with a girlfriend, they go together, or a young man would take the girl.
So it's either a man's girlfriend or a girl's friend that is a girl.
Yes, exactly. Well, and mostly a guy would say, "You want to go to a picture show?" And she'd say, "Of course." And go to a picture show, and we'll get some popcorn and get some some milk duds. So you sit down there, and whenever there's a scary scene or whatever, she might shriek and grab your arm, and you're like, okay,
it's all right, baby.
Yeah, it's all right, baby. I got you. Right, you can put your arm around her. That's a thing, okay? But a lot of the reviews at the time said it wasn't blood-curdlingly scary.
I don't think it was supposed to be, though.
But
it's
I know,
not specifically a horror movie, although
but
it tries.
They took it that way.
It tries to. It definitely tries to get at that element.
They did say it was different and fairly entertaining. Would you say that it's interesting?
Yes, there are so many moments in this movie that they said the adjective interesting for everything. And we were like, man, the screenwriter must have been not really creative. And you actually did say he must have not been a creative here. So we definitely know he's probably not really creative. That's funny. But he's
right.
Every adverb for a situation that goes on is interesting. We'll just play all the times they say interesting here. It's probably not too many, but
to see you again after so many years is interesting.
Interesting.
This may be very interesting.
Yes. Very.
They keep saying interesting when it sounds like a burn to me.
No,
It sounds like lazy writing.
My father was assistant here.
It's very interesting.
When he died 3 years ago.
Wait, my uncle was
I married
secretly
him.
a psychopath who killed my sister? Interesting.
It would be interesting to discover what it is.
He moves his arm with much more strength.
Very interesting.
I guess all
He
African
said very
babies are
interesting
pregnant.
again. So would you say this movie is very interesting?
All of the characters are interested and are thinking things are very interesting.
Interesting.
He hopes he's on the trail of an interesting new discovery.
I seem to have arrived at an interesting moment.
He arrived at an interesting moment. Everything's freaking interesting. Interesting what has just happened to you, my dear. Yes, interesting.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
That was most interesting, Doctor. Yes, it was interesting.
Should be a most interesting evening. It should indeed.
It's always just interesting.
So Frank Nugent of the New York Times said that Universal had made its newest Penny Dreadful with technical ingenuity and the pious hope of frightening the children. Boo right back at you, Mr. Laemmle.
And what is the Penny Dreadful? I haven't seen that.
I super know what a penny. I know exactly what a Penny Dreadful is. So back in the day, before there were movies or anything, there was called Penny Dreadfuls, and they were little horror or kind of early scary or mystery or thriller stories. And you pay like a small amount and get a piece of the story. Just like you would pay like a dime later on and watch the movie serials. You'd come in and watch Captain Marvel or Captain America or Superman or Batman.
So it's like you've got a Nickelodeon, which is like a nickel, but that's like 4 cents less.
Right. Well, the Penny Dreadful, you'd give a hay penny or a penny, and you'd get a little, a small, almost newspaper-sized little story, and you'd come back next week for the next chapter, and you'd have things like stories like about Spring-Heeled Jack, or a murderer, or Varney the Vampire. It was great stuff, and a lot of this stuff is actually online if you want to find
Monster Walks is probably definitely too long to fit in that category.
No,
but honestly,
no.
I could say it is a Penny Dreadful because it is Poverty Row, man.
Poverty Row.
Go check that episode out. That was a really fun one.
It was a fun one, and we'll do some combination episodes.
It was like hanging a milestone around our head.
Oh, around our head. All right, so there actually is footage in The Invisible Ray that was reused in a film serial called The Phantom Creeps, and that actually has Lugosi in it. I think there's like 12 to 15 episodes of that, of Phantom Creeps. And of course, it's super repetitive, which is a lot of
honestly,
work.
Why were there so many waffles? I mean, it's a cereal, but I mean, it's breakfast.
You are gonna just harp on that forever.
Yeah, that would be the Phantom Crepes. So
the Phantom Crepes.
That would be the Phantom Crepes.
Okay, all right, you got me.
Man, yeah.
Okay, that's my good laugh for the day. You got me, man. Phantom Crepes. I love it. Honestly, if we want to do a review of the Phantom Creeps at some point in the future, we can. Especially since it's probably public domain by now. A lot of these things I want to talk about this just for a second. A lot of these early pictures are actually not this Universal movie, but some other stuff is public domain, and you can find them on YouTube. All the episodes. It's really great. So anyway, that's all I could find about the production of the movie. Most of the stuff that really caught my eye and was interesting and I thought was good, was decent anyway, was the plot of the movie itself, and that's kind of where you come in, right?
Yes, that will be. But I mean, this movie, overall rating it, I would definitely say that this script probably had to have a lot of fault to the wackiness of the script, in the sense that there's lots of elements going on, but so far they haven't really came together. The Invisible Ray, the namesake of the movie, doesn't really do much for the story, except being a kicking off point for maybe introducing the character, maybe what other stuff. There's lots.
Well, I mean, is the Invisible Ray from Andromeda, or is it also the ray that gets created from the Radium X in that canon thing?
Yeah, I would think that the Radium X is actually the element being played at more here. Secondly, and then there's like, I don't know, the sudden urge to like murder people, and then like, I don't know, there's lots of elements going on in this movie that you go like, okay, how does this cohesively fit together? It honestly didn't really. It was not super homogenous. It wasn't super homogenous by a script.
What was the alternate,
thing.
the title? There was an alternate title. Was it the Silver Spectre or something like that? Which sounds like a superhero.
Oh yeah, from like the effects they do in this movie. they do that. Speaking of effects, short effect stuff, from what I can remember, they had like a little presentation in the movie about like planets, and they used some planets for that. I mean, the Universal logo has a whole model planet, so they're bound to be good with planets. They have some shots where it's like, where you're looking through a telescope, or like a keyhole, or like later in the movie an eye, as we'll talk about later. Not to too much spoil about that, but they have like a little thing where they go to like a straight shot of like layered up images to where they put something. Like, you could see something through a keyhole, you could see something through a telescope, stuff like that.
Yes. Actually, I looked it up. It's The Shining Spectre was the alternate title of this.
And it makes sense because the main effect that's used in this movie is that they sort of color the color scientist Boris Karloff character, Krug was his name, I think.
Rook.
Dr. Rook. They colored him when he gets the magical powers. Every time he goes into the darkness is when he glows in the dark, and we get to see this really cool.
He's got that soul glow.
He got that soul glow that it glows about him, and they sort of did that probably like, I don't know, shining stuff onto the film. Maybe they could have like overlaid some stuff. Yeah, it was probably the latter. They probably shot some radiation at the film, used some aberration and created a light effect for this effect. I mean, there's so many special effects that they could do. This special effects have been evolving so much they could do literally anything. I mean, they could make text that like fades and like moves in circles and stuff. If you see old trailers from Universal, you'll see a lot of those moving around and like becoming like phantomly as they fade away. So they could do all sorts of stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I did kind of like this movie. It's not my favorite, but there's so many movies that have a real memorable aspect to them, and I liked it.
And especially we've
but
had
not,
a lot of
I wouldn't
these...
put it up there with Frankenstein and Invisible Man, though.
Yeah, we have a lot of our earlier season stuff had a lot of the, horror films in their heyday, but we have a lot of, slightly medium sort of horror films in the making, and this is sort of like a science fiction film that sort of falls between there, sort of, but it's not a horror film, so don't count it as one. It's trying to be a little bit, but it's a science fiction film at heart. But technically, there is some horror that can come out because of science fiction, as we talked about with The Invisible Man. It's sort of confusing a little that way, the way they categorize it, but just the movie overall is pretty fine. I definitely agree. It presents itself really well. I mean, the period really does call for that a lot. There's a lot of, dramatic tensions throughout, especially there's stakes toward the end with, like, the main character going on a rampage and killing all the people he likes and stuff. Although that doesn't, when I say he kills the people he likes, that reminds me of the Werewolf of London.
I don't think he kills the people he likes. He kills the people that have done him wrong.
He's required to because of a building that was built, like, 21 years ago or something. So they built a statue, and then they're suddenly like, oh, there's a relationship. The statues mean something prophetically to kill people specifically because you want to. So just okay then.
Well, no. Of course, you're talking about the plot, which we'll get into in just a minute.
Yeah, we'll talk about the plot we're getting into. We're just there's a lot of elements that could have been done better, but the script could have handled that. If you had a better script, it could have been done well. But for a Universal movie, it definitely achieved what it was going for. Definitely.
Yes, and of course it does have a milestone for it's our first science fiction kind of film.
First science fiction film in a while, and for a Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi film, you definitely sort of get a little bit of that dynamic in this film with the conflict between the two characters.
Beef again, man. They keep having beef.
They're literally two characters that go head-to-head in a lot of the duo films that they do. And I'd like to see a film where they actually work together. And you're about to tell me what that is.
I don't know of any. I can't think of any.
Wait, there is a Denny?
I don't know. They work together, I think.
Are there any movies where they're nicey buddy buds?
Okay, that's where you said work together. I was like, okay, nicey nice. No. I don't think there is anything.
Are they? Where on earth are they good buddies? As they sort of are in real life. Just are there any? Seriously?
No, I don't think there are.
That's tragic, though.
Yes.
And we'll get to our last Boris Karloff movie, like, I don't know, somewhere like the 60s or 70s or whatever on Earth would be our last Boris Karloff movie we see. And we'll be like, oh, it was so sad that he never got a movie where he was all nicey bud with Bela Lugosi.
Well, I think Boris Karloff, I think he may have outlived Bela Lugosi. We'll have to look at that because we do actually get to the point when we're talking about.
And he probably did take good care of himself because we talked about how Bela Lugosi went.
Bela Lugosi was addicted to heroin and methadone, which and morphine. So that's not good. Or no, morphine and methadone.
He was addicted to Power Rangers syndrome.
What?
Morphine.
Oh, Mighty Morphine Power Ranger. Oh, so bad. No, the morphine grid. No, what happened is I think Karloff may have died of lung cancer. Is that or heart disease? One of the two. But again, I could say that about any of the actors that we're talking about.
Yeah, it must have been Bride of Frankenstein that did that.
Oh, really? So, all right,
he smoked in that movie.
That's true. He did smoke a lot in the movie. Smoke good. All right, so let's talk about. We're talking about a lot of other movies instead of Invisible Ray.
Yeah, there's just we've talked about all the non-homogeneous elements in this movie. What else is there we can really super talk about?
Well, we'll talk about the plot. We're going to go into. We're going to take a break for just a moment. When we come back, we'll go into the plot.
Yes, and we especially had a really great reactionary time with this one, so there'll be a lot of nice clips of that. Hopefully I can slot in there in my plot.
Yes.
Because it was really fun reacting to this movie, so that'll be fun. So, au revoir, I guess, for the French leaving.
That's right. Doesn't part of this take place in Paris? Au revoir. See you soon. Welcome back to the second half of, this is the fourth episode of Cinematic Fantastic, where we're talking about The Invisible Ray with Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. The plot is a little more science fiction than we're probably used to, as we previously mentioned. I think that a lot of these mad scientist movies came out in the late 30s and 40s, and, of course, when they needed a mad scientist, who'd they go to but Boris and Bela. But this movie's plot, I thought, was really wacky, and I liked it. But William has done a lot of research into this and exactly what happened. Do you want to lay it out for us?
Yes, indeed, I will, Father. And especially reacting to this thing was in particular fun because of the ways the script goes. And as I'll probably edit a little bit into this, but we finally finished the ending. And the ending is just completely, it takes you a direction you wouldn't expect. So that's awesome to do. So, first before the film is some text which we read out loud while we were watching it. Ew, every scientific fact accepted today once burned as a fantastic fire in the mind of someone called mad. All right. Who are we on this youngest, smallest plans to say the invisible ray is impossible to science?
That which you are now to see is a theory whispered in the cloisters of science.
Tomorrow these theories might startle the universe as a fact.
So basically,
interesting. So basically, bees can't fly.
No, it's impossible, but they still do. No, what was the thing where they go? The fellow professors at the university called me mad. Mad, I say. Well, they'll think I'm mad when I'll prove them wrong. That's what this just sounds like a.
So nice... basically, it's saying someone mad. No scientific fact is right.
No,
the invisible ray is possible.
That someone crazy doesn't have some smarts to him or something.
So we start with a Gothic castle, lightning atop some mountains. It's the home/observatory of a Dr. Janusz Ruch. And his mother and his wife Diana are waiting on a group of guests that Janusz has invited for a PowerPoint presentation of his epic theory about an invisible ray that he seeks to prove, despite his peers considering it fairly unorthodox.
You have to go unorthodox. You really do. If you're going to be a mad scientist, you just can't.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. It's funny.
Unorthodox. Nonsense.
Oh, nonsense. I'm purely Presbyterian.
Presbyterian. I'm an orthodox mad scientist. I'm not a. I'm non-denominational mad scientist.
You can't do science as it's prescribed. You have to, because then nobody's going to say you're mad. You have to like go a little bit askew. You have to go unorthodox.
Yeah, your face has to be red enough for you to be mad, but
exactly. You know, or your hair has to be crazy enough. It has to like.
And his hair's pretty crazy as it is.
Well, what about Albert Einstein? Have you seen those pictures of Albert Einstein with his hair out? I mean.
Well, and his tongue too. I don't know why they do that photo, but
that was one photo that it was candid. I think he was not posing for it. He just kind of like they caught him in the middle of it, and they were like, "Oh, that's great." But look. Albert Einstein is one bad day from being a mad scientist. He's okay, you know. Like Joker said, all it takes is one bad day. He's a little crazy. He has some crazy theories. Albert Einstein.
But he sure helped out with the nuclear bomb.
Oh no, his theories did. I think that was more Oppenheimer than anything. But his theories, theories are great. But when you use them for not what they're intended for, it can have some harmful consequences. Hence this movie, right?
Hence this movie. So. We get Mother Ruch, as she is known. She recalls her son's first finding this great beam from Andromeda.
It was on such a night that Janos first caught his ray from Andromeda. Your father worked the guides. I held the detecting lens and never saw again.
Dear Mother Ruch.
Wait, what? She saw something on a lens from a ray from Andromeda and got blinded.
In other words,
she got blinded by the light.
Her eyes got melted.
Wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night.
Is that a reference?
It's a song.
My son will not learn until too late, I fear, that the universe is very large, and there are some secrets we are not meant to probe.
So Diana interrupts Janos at his work to announce that the car has arrived, obviously with the guests.
Right.
Said it has Lando Leia vibes.
Why is this giving me Lando Leia vibes?
Oh, he does look like Lando.
The guests have arrived.
The guests have arrived later, but Janos is all like, "They'll never laugh at me again" and stuff. When she interrupts him from his work, he's just like, "Well, they'll never laugh at me again." Wahaha.
I think if you okay, number one, you have to be unorthodox. Number two, maybe the hair has to get a little crazy. That's not absolute, and you have to say something about they always thought I was crazy back at the university, but I'll show them. That they always say something like that, and you're checking all the boxes of mad scientist.
I was booted, my dear sir.
Oh, okay, there you go. Wait a minute.
Dr. Pretorius.
Pretorius had crazy hair.
Maybe, but he wasn't as much mad as, like, a bit nutty.
I think
he was just on the soup. He's nutty.
Is that the
level? That's how I would describe him. But like
odd.
In Dr. Ruch is like mad, but then this guy is just nutty. Dr. Pretorius is more nutty.
So you have odd, nutty, and mad, and it just goes back and forth.
Yeah. So again, soon his guests show up. We have Dr. Felix Benet, which is played by Bela Lugosi. He's looking good with his beard, goatee-looking thing.
Oh yeah, I people always see him without a goatee on, but whenever he has that goatee, it just looks so much better. I mean, and the eyebrows
and especially when he commandeers a bunch of zombie army people, as we did in White Zombie.
Great episode.
The first zombie film, interestingly enough. So then we get Sir Francis Stevens.
How do you do?
Lady Arabella and her nephew Ronald Drake.
How do you do?
And as they meet, this is what, as Janos Ruch and Dr. Benet meet, we get one of the funniest lines in the movie, which is like, "Oh, Dr. Benet, we meet at last." And then Bela Lugosi replies, "But we already know each other." So that's like, "We meet at last. We already know each other. What do you mean?"
Right. It's like he's like, well, I had to say something, really stereotypical and tropey right there, like, "We met at last, dear Dr. Benet." I had to say that. It's required.
And the last time we met was interesting. And we've already played all the times earlier how many times they said interesting, but if you wanted us to play it again, then go back there.
Yes.
We don't want to play this a million times again. We can fill a
No.
whole episode with interesting if we wanted to. We don't want to do that. It's not interesting to fill a whole podcast with interesting.
That's what I was going to say. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, next scene when everyone meets in his lab room for his master class, his TED Talk, if you will.
Welcome to my planetarium.
Welcome to my TED Talk.
Yeah, welcome to my TED Talk.
Right.
Janusz puts on a welding mask, and I said this makes him look a bit like Bender.
Any Futurama fans out here?
Bender. It looks like Bender, yeah.
Oh, Bender from Futurama.
Yeah, because of the square eyes that is in the welding mask. That's why I said that.
He also looked like he's about to dive. He's about to take a deep dive with the Nautilus and Captain Nemo or something, yeah.
And through the power of switches...
How many switches do you need?
Flippity flip.
Flippity flip. He harnesses the beam through a telescope so they could visually travel on the ray and back in time to see a meteor hit Africa from space. And it's a wonder they could predict space 30 years before the photo, the blue marble. They predicted what the Earth looked like.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's interesting that it's like, they invented the globe, and then you look at the photo, which is called the blue marble. You can look it up on Google or Yahoo, if you want to. Yahoo! So it's like, even before we got to actually see our first photo of the planet Earth, we had, like, globes that sort of predicted what it would look like, which is interesting.
You mean the Earth is round, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, just checking. All right. I wanted everybody to know this is not that kind of podcast.
Yeah, we can argue that till Kingdom Come.
Yeah, and we would win. Yeah,
and here are all the parts we laughed at during the presentation.
It struck an uncharted spot somewhere in the continent of Africa.
Vibranium! It's Wakanda. This is the opening scene from Black Panther. Oh, that's Wakanda.
Oh no, Africa!
It's gonna take me a lot to get me away from you. There's nothing that 100 million more men could ever do. God bless the meteors down in Africa.
Actually occurred a few thousand million years ago.
A thousand million years ago.
1 million, 1,000. That's the correct order.
No, 1,000 million.
Every sound since eternity began.
Might as well
A
say
billion 100 years ago.
That was hilarious.
And I thought that the name of the movie was The Invisible Ray, and when I was watching this, I was like, okay, is it some kind of ray that he shoots out of his hands or his eyes or some kind of cool?
Yeah, the thing is, the script is whack because it's like we have the invisible ray that you can write it to the past and heal people, but the Radium X can also heal people and damage people. Or things as well, but yeah, probably people.
You know what? Science.
It's like the Radium X and the Invisible Ray are the exact same thing, so why not drop on them?
Because science. It's just whatever. Whatever you want it to do. That's the thing. We're going to get in when we get to the 50s and the late 40s, they're constantly conjuring up radiation, and they're using that as an excuse for everything.
As I said, this movie isn't presented as cheesy. It's not a cheesy movie. It's just that the script is not really up to par with quality because the script is kind of whack. So, Ruch believes the meteor contains a substance 1,000 times more powerful than radium. His discovery, which he refers to as Radium X, amazes his guests enough to be worthy of planning an expedition. And for some brandy, too.
Wait, doing his presentation...
Have some brandy.
Or a potato.
So that's a King Candy reference. Have some candy. Have some brandy.
Hey, have some brandy. That's the King Candy impression. How's everybody doing? Would you like some candy and some brandy?
And then go subscribe to my new Seinfeld show.
I am Turbo.
So do they? He cuts them in on the. They all kind of shake hands on it and go.
They're like, oh yes, that would be definitely worthy of an expedition. Let's go do that.
But they would only do that because really they get equal shares of the money that comes from the research or something.
Yeah. However, Janusz doesn't really super believe that, but he does agree to join them. However, Mother Ruch, who knows her son closely, says,
"It will not be wise for you to go, even though you may make a great discovery. You will not be happy. You are not used to people, Janusz. You never will be. Your experiments are your friends. Leave people alone."
Which is basically go be an introvert.
Right.
And do what people have been doing in 2020 all this time.
Yeah, and honestly, when I look at Diana real quick and I look at Janusz, I'm like, I don't get husband and wife vibes from them. Or boyfriend girlfriend. I keep getting like brother sister vibes. You know, I don't know. Hey, you know, Boris Karloff, I'm sure a perfectly nice looking guy, but he always...
Actually, that makes sense as a theory. I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, they don't, it just, you know, I don't see what, you know what? People see things in people. You know, there's different things that somebody may not see, that there's a good core of him, or that he's, you know, very, not obsessed, but he's very, like, smart, and that might be the thing that causes her to fall in love with him. But I don't know, I just, you know, especially how he treats her later, I'm just kind of like, yeah, you're not really being the best husband you can be, and that's kind of part of that dooms him and everyone else too.
So, Dr. Benet's expedition goes to Nigeria.
You can go.
World Sciences, National Grid Radium X. Goal of the Dr. Benet.
Vibranium. Vibranium.
It's Radium X.
Bornu, Nigeria. Don't you mean Wakanda?
Is that why I got a sent email that said that there was a prince from there who had a lot of Radium X for me?
a Nigerian prince with a lot of Radium X that he needed to get to America, and so he had to send it to us. He needed our bank account information.
He was like, oh no, I have some vibranium. Do you want vibranium?
Saruch sets out away from the group and is gone for several weeks, while Dr. Benet continues his work in astrochemicals.
Okay.
Which my autocorrect severely wanted to autocorrect to petrochemicals, which is like rock chemicals, because astrochemistry doesn't exist.
Well, petrochemistry, I think, is also about coal and oil and shale and things like that. You know,
it's like, hey, astrochemistry, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, well, sorry, the scriptwriter said it, so we're saying it.
Well, hey, it's lycanthrophobia, you know.
Yeah, the previous episode
Werewolfery, yeah.
Werewolfery.
So here's the question. Here's something to warn people ahead of time. If anybody remembers our very popular Tarzan, the Ape-Man episode on YouTube, a lot of people know about this episode, okay? So it takes place a lot in Africa. And whenever that happens, just want to warn you that the people you see that are of darker skin and more African persuasion are probably...
They're encroaching on stereotypes.
Yes, and they're not going to be, like, really portrayed like they really would be. I think they filmed this in California. You know, they probably filmed it in the same area that they filmed. I don't know. That'd be interesting to find out.
Dad said that earlier.
This is the second time we've been to Africa. First time was, like, Lost World. We haven't really been to Africa.
Africa was in South America. No. Sorry. No, we went to...
I'm putting that...
No. The Lost World was set in South America, in Amazon.
Oh, right.
You're talking about Tarzan. But actually, Africa was in California. Because that's where they filmed it. Africa was in California.
It's not Wakanda, it's California.
Overall, the script is really interesting in terms of, like, places. You get to go, like, Africa and to, like, a craters we'll see later. There's, like, different locations that, like, oh, I was sort of surprised they're actually going to Africa, because it's, like, this movie in general feels to me like sort of like a spice away from, like, the thing. To where it's like, oh, we're getting something new and fresh, and interestingly, funnily enough, like, interesting places to go where you wouldn't normally go.
Interesting.
It's
kind of good for us to be away from Eastern Europe for a change, and of course Britain, because we do go to Paris later, which is great. Of course, Bela Lugosi was in Paris before, you know, on the Rue Morgue, so we've seen Bela in Paris before, and it's you know, I don't know, I think when we get more towards, you know, the 40s and 50s, we'll see a lot more American-based locations, maybe in the Southwest and things like that. But here, it was kind of nice to see some different locations. I agree with you, because we've seen a lot of Eastern European stuff.
And a lot of stagnant sort of areas of location that aren't super... Well, so it's like the script, while it may be whack, I guess I could say it's creative. I could give it that.
Yeah.
So, with a crew of African natives, Janusz locates the site of the crater by using a Geiger counter. And by crater, I mean, as I said, there was a meteor that crashed in Africa, and they've got to discover it.
1,000 million years ago, though.
1,000 million years ago.
Right.
So, in a protective suit, he goes down into the crater and retrieves a sample of Radium X. Meanwhile, Diana and Drake are falling in love, and Lady Arabella sees an opportunity to play matchmaker.
Timber, more water, please.
Oh, he must be so confused when everyone is, like, chopping down trees. They go, like, timber, and then he goes up and he's like, yes? It's like, and they're like, oh, no, not you. Because his name is Timber.
Clean water is hard to come by, yet they're pouring it on his feet.
So, Ruch sends a runner carrying a special message to Benet's group that he found the Radium X, basically.
This time tomorrow night you get there.
So they're sending that guy as a runner to run as fast as he can to hand something to somebody else. Thank you, God, for, like, cell phones. Because you pick up a cell phone, hey, honey,
Just make a telegram pole. So when Ruch's, that is hard to say, when Ruch's safari entourage tries to abandon him using a fantastic special effect, Ruch uses the destructive power of Radium X to liquefy a huge rock before their eyes.
I'm saying the effect is kind of cool. It looks like it just turns to oatmeal. It's awesome.
It does turn to oatmeal. So Diana gets the message later and accompanies the runner to be with her husband. So he's sort of like, hey, I've got the Radium X. I'm gonna come back. And she's like, yo, I see that. I'll go meet you where you are. Or in the middle. Meet you in the middle.
Right.
So the next evening, Ruch discovers he has become poisoned with Radium X. Radiation poisoning, I guess. When his hands and face glow like phosphorus in the dark.
But of course, you know, when you have real radiation poisoning, it doesn't show up in the visible spectrum, though. You have to, like, the Geiger counter has to show you that you're radioactive, you know.
Yeah, it's because they're so tiny of particles that they're probably bashing apart your skin and you don't even know it until it's too late. You know, people who fire neurons, that's also technically an invisible ray. It's just smaller than the naked eye can see.
What, protons?
Yeah, they just shoot him.
Yeah.
They blast open anything.
Well, this ray is from Andromeda, though.
People use it to make new elements.
It's breaking apart your cellular structure. It causes you to be sterile. It's all different kind of things. If somebody's really curious about some of the things that happen to somebody when they hit with radiation, there is a HBO, I think, it's a series called Chernobyl. And the people that I've seen reviews on, it's really freaky. It's very emotional, but also, you know, when they describe what it's doing to people's bodies, it's horrible.
And while you're at it, might as well watch Grave of the Fireflies.
Oh, no.
Sorry, that was a joke.
Do you really want me to cry? If anybody doesn't know, Grave of the Fireflies is one of the saddest anime movies. Anime that I've ever seen. I was told to pronounce it that way. But this is one of the saddest anime movies I've ever seen.
And that definitely has radiation as part of the plot.
It does. And I didn't like cry. My jaw was dropped and I was just overwhelmed with the heaviness of that movie. But again, let's come back to a happier
place, a happier movie where he gets radiation, and the first thing he does is he immediately goes to pet the family dog. And so his touch kills it, and a glowing handprint is visible on the animal's head.
This is like Harry Potter, Can I Pet the Dog? Have you heard that? People were like, it was the game that came out recently, Harry Potter game. People were like upset that they couldn't pet a dog.
Oh, that's every video game, is that they can't pet the dog, they get upset.
Exactly. Well, when he pets the dog, he dies, so not so great.
Yeah, but it's funny that he's just like, oh, I have radiation poisoning. Better pet my dog. That's hilarious. So, just then, Diana appears, and Rick refuses to meet Diana or tell her the truth. Here's the heartbreaking dialogue, them separated by tent wall.
Janos?
What are you doing here? You must go away at once. At once, do you hear?
But it's Diana.
You shouldn't have come. I wrote you I had important work to do. I don't want to be bothered with anyone.
Oh, you must be ill. What's happened to you?
Nothing's happened to me. What makes you think anything's happened to me?
It's been weeks since you left. Don't you want to see me?
I don't want to see you here. This is no place for you. You must leave here at once.
But my place is where you are. I won't be a bother.
I suppose you'll have to stay the night. My headman will find shelter for you. But I want you out of here the very first thing in the morning. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
Zaruch takes the specimen of Radium X, I believe, as he heads out to see Dr. Benet. He hears Diana crying in her tent as he leaves the camp, due to obvious reasons. He just dumped her because he couldn't show himself. So when Rook gets to Benet's tent, he tells him how he's doing. Benet concocts an antidote, giving Rook a temporary reprieve. However, Rook will always need to take the medication.
Nothing can ever cure you. At best, your state of poisoning can only be checked, suspended. And now that the counteractive is gone into your bloodstream, you can only live if you use a small amount of it at regular intervals each day. All the days of your life.
Take 2 and Got to Be in the Morning.
He's got that soul glow.
So any delay in his body, he becomes a killing machine once again. He'll then disintegrate into ash when it goes too far. So he's like, he's gonna become a constant, hot potato. Don't touch him or you die. And he disintegrates into ash. So it's a weird chain of events, but...
Wasn't there was an alternate title, I think I've already mentioned.
Oh yeah, The Shining Spectre.
I don't like it as much.
I feel like it's accurate because they don't use the invisible ray that much.
It is accurate to who he is in the story.
Well, it's accurate in the sense that the invisible ray is technically, false advertising, because you're going like, oh, an invisible ray that does barely nothing that isn't taken by Radium X.
Right, exactly. It's mainly the Radium X in Karloff that's doing all the damage. Yep.
So we thought it was about an invisible ray from Andromeda, but the invisible ray from Andromeda just told them where a freaking element was. Then he's gonna get to element. Element's gonna do something. Turn him into a mutant.
All the damage. So, Benet is unsure about the effects of the antidote and poison on Rook's brain. He's like, yo, what's this gonna do to you, and what's my antidote do to you? I don't know, but take 2 and call me in the morning.
Right.
So, Janos returns to his camp. There's some mention by the African native people about how they found the crater using drum telegrams.
They talked of a white man who made magic in the mountains.
Oh, they sent...
No ill effects
They
so
sent
far.
cell phone drum telegram. When they hit 1 beat, it means white man make magic glowing hands. They make 2 beats, it means he's Boris Karloff.
If you see 3 beats, this movie is a silent picture. Wait.
They expected you back in camp long before this.
No, that's impossible. While Benet has gone to see Rook, Ronald and Diana have confessed their love for each other. When Rook and Benet are chatting, and Benet mentions he hasn't used the rays / Radium X's healing properties, because again, they're really equivalent. And Rook says he has time. He's like, oh, you've only used the death part, why not use the love part? And he's like, I have time, because my discovery is all mine! And as such, Benet is like, this is what I feared. And then he reveals that he already sent Sir Francis to bring Rook's sample to an international scientific convention in Paris, and Rook calls them thieves because of that. So basically, he doesn't get his just credit, in quotes, because he already sent it out and he's going to give full credit to everyone.
We couldn't wait for you forever, Rook. Besides,
stole it from us. Precious. Right.
He's kind of correct. Look, when you have a scientific...
Benet is the good guy in that sense, yeah.
Well, when you have a scientific discovery, I don't care how good it is, you need to discuss with one another what this discovery can be used for, and you have to make agreements about those kind of things. Because discoveries, unfortunately, they're done by people, and people have things that have investment that they've done.
And people need credit for the work that they have done. After all, that they devote like 12 or 15 straight minutes of credits at the end of every movie you watch. Or not maybe not like every movie, but like most modern movies that you watch.
Well, every cast is worth repeating.
Every cast is worth repeating again and again and again. And then you put an end credit scene that says, yo, go home.
Right, exactly.
We had too many people to credit. You're just going to stay here and watch it all? So, Benet assures Janos that he will be solely responsible for the discovery. But then he gives Rook a letter from Diana saying that she thinks Janos no longer loves her and that she loves Ronald Drake. So basically she's just like, you dumped me earlier with the tent. So, goodbye, I'm going to love Ronald Drake. So, angry at the whole prospect, Janos responds in an outburst of rage. You come like thieves in the night and steal everything from me. Get out here, Benet. Get out before... Then Benet leaves. So next scene, newspapers affirm Benet expedition leaves Africa, returns to England. Rook Carpathian Laboratory.
Okay, he's back at the laboratory with the Radium X. He's gonna blast some fools. They're gonna be like, I like hanging out with you, Diane. He's gonna melt like the dude and he's gonna Raiders of the Lost Ark these people.
After that, in the most moving scene of the movie, Janos successfully uses Radium X to treat his mother's blindness. Or rather, the ray. I don't know. He shoots a ray at his mother's eyes, and it cures him. And he does say, don't move, mother. Sit still. In a few moments we will know. And we had a lot to say about this.
Wait, what?
Sit quite still.
What are they doing? Wait, were they trying to cure her eyesight?
Yeah, is he trying to...
In a few moments.
Was that the whole plan?
Hang on.
Did I miss something here? Okay. Don't do this at home, kids.
Yeah, don't shine a light in your blind mama's face. If it's a radiated laser beam.
Yeah, not that kind of laser beam.
Yeah. That's those little pin lights that you're not supposed to shine.
That's supposed to destroy cancer, not your mother. Unless your mother is cancer.
Hang on. Maybe it's gonna.
So again, after this, we see Dr. Benet using Radium X's healing properties to treat the throngs of patients queuing outside his Paris clinic. We got some more clips about that.
Wait, Dr. Benet's use of Radium X. So Dr. Benet has figured out how to heal people with Radium X. So he's just healing blindness. He hasn't shot any cancers. He hasn't, like, somebody goes, I can't walk, and they shoot a laser at him. He goes, I can still not walk.
Also, people who can see for the first time probably have a much bigger reaction than just, Mommy, I can see.
And Janos arrives in Paris and visits Benet. He finds out that Diana and Drake are getting married. So at this point, he's like, the deal is done. He's not good anymore. So at this point, Rook fakes his own death by using Radium X to kill an unsuspecting victim. And then thus, newspaper headlines feature tragic news, which is Radium
X discoverer found dead. Dr. Rook's mutilated body identified through papers and his face burned beyond... he put his clothes on the other dude and melted his face off.
So Dr. Benet is like, he has given Mr. Beast a run for his money in healing, curing blindness.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I almost wasn't going to bring up how it's been famous with Mr. Beast healing like 1,000 videos that we just have to mention that YouTube channel here. It's hilarious to think that there are parallels with this and the new events with, like, Mr. Beast, and people have yelled at him about, like, you healed the blind, and it's, like, all the weird controversies that are happening.
Well, you can't do anything nice for people. It's like...
What about all the other people who he helped that didn't appear, and maybe possibly did die from a surgery?
Well, we don't know that. Yeah, that's opinion.
It's like, why aren't you helping everyone,
Well, I've also seen videos where it said... This guy did a meme video, and he said, Mr. Beast cures cancer, and then it said, this is what Twitter says, and he goes, oh, he's the devil. Yeah. It's like, okay, you can't do anything right for anybody. It's like, if you do something nice, but Dr. Benet, I disagree with him, because he did, unlike, Mr. Beast is just using somebody else's, techniques.
But yeah, and plus the thumbnail... If you look at the
thumbnail's cringy.
The thumbnail is so weird looking how they distort the faces, and that's what he usually does. But like, it's whack. Just
well, this has been Mr. Beast talk with Jason.
This has been Dr. Benet is Mr. Beast confirmed.
Yeah, let's talk about Dr. Benet. Dr. Benet is using someone else's scientific work to do good. But he stole it. He didn't. He's not. He's actually claiming. He's not saying that it's Rook's formula.
I feel like this isn't particularly his fault, though. But it's better than giving it all to like the bad person. But giving it all to the good person is way too much in the further in the other line.
He's doing some good stuff with it, but at least he's not using the Radium X power to melt people and glow in the dark. At least he's doing some good with it, but he's not really going about it the best way.
I guess that means minions have Radium X, because there's a scene where he shakes a Gru, I guess? I don't know. Gru shakes a minion in a Despicable Me.
Yeah.
And it glows in the dark, so therefore they have Radium X.
Yep, it's confirmed.
So, Rook is present when Diana and Drake marry. And after this, Rook sees 6 statues, 4 of men and 2 of women, outside, and he looks at the cathedral. He configures these in his mind into all 6 members of the Benet expedition. Janos thus makes a plan of vengeance and rents a room opposite the cathedral. He considers Sir Francis Stevens as he looks at the first statue. Sir Francis Stevens, thief.
Why does it have that Star Wars music?
So this is where he's gone, like, absolute crazy bonkers, and then suddenly has a task based off of architecture that was built probably 20 years before his birth, or something.
A long time ago, and he's starting to have a hit list. So this is where you kind of go off the rails. If he was, nutty and then mad and then he's crazy, I don't know what the progression is here, but he's mad.
He's a mad scientist, but not in the sense of experimentation, but in the sense of murdering people. So thus, Sir Francis's body the following evening is discovered by the maid Celeste and the butler Pierre. He lies sprawled out on the bed, attired in a tuxedo, eyes filled with pure terror. Benet is summoned to the scene, and one of the weirdest part of the movie is Benet uses an ultraviolet camera to photograph the retinas of Sir Francis's eyes before the tissues glaze over. So, I think it was called, CSI, whatever. It was, a series that did, enhance to, discover mysteries. It's literally this. They literally enhanced upon his eyes images and made pixels, appear.
It wasn't a reflection. It was like your eye takes a picture. That is not how eyeballs and light work.
That is not how eyeballs work, but this was a funny reaction to see.
The last thing that the eyes saw is still in the eyeballs. He said the eye tissues will glaze over after. Exactly. He took a picture of his eyeballs to see what the last thing. He was really.
This is
Boris Karloff going ah!
Yeah, this is exactly like the investigation, whatever it was called.
What was it?
Yeah, what was it? It was about you how enhance.
Oh, enhance.
What was that from?
Well, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but
Right.
But seeing the face of Boris Karloff in the dude's eyes is, well, I did talk about this earlier with Werewolf of London, how they did that overlaying with the keyhole. They did the same thing here as well. And, but the funny thing is, it's talking about the CSI, enhance, and then gain, the killer's eyes from, or, that he was playing basketball from, a photo of...
It's wacky, and anybody that's technical, that knows about cameras...
You can't generate data from, images that don't have that data in there because it's too tiny. You can't glean... a basketball shape from a single 3 pixels on a screen.
No, you can't, and it's been proven, and
this was just hilarious.
Yes.
In the meantime, Ruch has melted one of the cathedral's male statues.
So he destroyed a statue every time.
So he destroyed person and property?
He destroyed personal property and a human being.
I said person and property?
Person and property.
Benet develops the glass plate negative, and in the iris of the eyes of Sir Francis is the image of Janos Ruch. And he gives himself confirmation by saying, Ruch, I knew it. So, yeah, this is the ultimate discovery scene of him doing it, but it's just... why? It's so whack.
It is wacky.
I keep saying whack, but it's I've developed a word how to describe this movie, I guess. So, in the next room... Janos ponders his next victim, Lady Stevens, matchmaker. Like an angel of death, Rook kills Lady Stevens and melts a female statue at the church accordingly. He's oh, this is my tally mark, I guess.
Yeah, and I, this is where I started to feel sorry too, because you killed this lady, and her worst crime was, I want another young lady that I know to be happy. And this other guy that I know, I want him to be happy too.
But this is just an irrational... This is an irrational need to do. It's not like he's the Werewolf of London, where he has to kill who he loves most, or who's closest to him. It's just... He has to kill people who we know. The only NPC characters we know, he has to kill.
Well, yeah, he has to collect them all, like Burger King cups or something. So here's the thing though. Can Janos really look at himself in the mirror and realize, hey, maybe my attitude and the way that I treated my girl pushed her away from me into this situation where someone could matchmake.
And even when you were in a pretty good relationship, you were still a mad scientist. So
yeah,
you have your issues to fix, guy, I guess.
Well, I think we've seen this before. Ladies be loving those mad scientists. Okay, Henry, Frankenstein, Glendon, Ruch. I mean, I don't know what the deal is, but these ladies be loving these scientists. What?
It's a movie from 1930s.
Oh, thanks. Well, scientists don't all look like these mad people, and they're not all crazy. They're perfectly sane people, most of them.
Exactly. So, again, the Paris Herald heralds the terrible news. Radium X claims third victim. Titled Woman Dies in Curse. The news travels fast as the boys are selling the papers before the body of Lady Stevens has even been removed from her home. So we get like a bunch of newsboys like saying, Radium X claims third victim. All about the next part, and it's just...
Well, when it said titled woman, it took me a second to think, is this a misprint? It was supposed to say something else like title of woman. It's something to just stay in the place.
It was
like
a titled
placeholder.
Woman, but like what?
She is a titled woman. She's a lady. She's Lady Stevens.
Yeah, she's Lady Stevens.
It took me that for a moment.
I guess titled is a more distinguished word, I guess. Titled woman.
It is, but it took a moment for me to kind of go, is this a misprint? But anyway.
Is this a misprint? So Benet is of the opinion that a madman is in control of Paris. Well, no duh.
Right.
And I'm going to ask you to listen to some facts.
Pulls up a fax machine.
Diana, my dear, there are no such things as curses.
The one who's in...
Listen to my facts.
The one who's done all this... Who is Pepe Silvia?
I won't let you talk like that.
His immediate action is to tell the authorities the entire story, and he shows them Lady Stevens' glowing handprint on her throat. Mother Rook believes her son is still alive. Well, no duh. Frank Lawton and Francis Drake are talking about the situation. So it's like, there's some curse. Diana and Drake are talking about this. Why does it say Frank Lawton? Whatever. I'm mistaken. The script is weird.
Oh, that's the actor, I think.
Oh, right. Sorry. Frank Lawton is the actor of Diana. So Diana and Francis Drake is the actor. Okay,
right.
I'm confuddled. Diana and Drake are talking, okay?
Yes, there you go.
There we are.
There's some curse.
Diana, my dear, there are no such things as curses.
Well, they needn't look any farther for the murderer. Here she is.
Stop it. I won't let you talk like that.
If I hadn't left him, they'd all be alive today. Janos, Sir Francis, and Arabella.
Stop it. We loved each other. We belonged to each other. You never belonged to him. And no law of nature or man can make it anything but right for us to have done what we did. He shan't reach out of his grave and spoil our lives. I'll fight it.
But what are you going to fight? Something you can't see? Something you can't reach? Something you can't touch? Oh, darling, hold me tight. We're going to need each other
so very much. I commented, well, that's what the script says, because they're telling them these people need each other, are going to need each other very much.
Right, exactly, because the script said so.
So again, in the news, they publish terror grips crowd as statue melts. Sacred image mysteriously disappears in sight of throng as onlookers faint and pray.
The Ark of the Covenant. No! What could have melted that statue? The Ark of the Covenant.
6 figures of the saints on the church.
He killed 2 of us and destroyed 2 of the 6
A rubber
figures.
band
A
gun.
man and a woman in each case.
Yeah, so it's just like all the newspapers in this movie, where it's like, we know that there's stuff going on, but it's like, we know that it must have been melted in Accord, but they had to do it in the universe. So, Benet puts all the pieces together and comes up with a strategy to capture Rook. A story is let out that all 3 survivors of the Benet expedition are to leave Paris, but their final destination is unknown. So basically, they're like, screw this place, we're out. There's a murderer in town. Goodbye. So, before heading out, Benet will give a lecture about his most recent work with Radium X. The lecture will start at midnight, and scientists are to be admitted by card only. If they do not capture Rook at the gate, they'll darken the house and bolt all the doors at midnight. So basically, they're trying to lure him.
It's a trap.
They're trying to lure him with the fact that it's like, oh, we're about to leave, guys. I'm going to commemorate this special experience, and lure him away. And this does indeed catch Rook. As when the night is cold and rainy, Professor Michael John, which is he's one of the invited scientists. But Michael John, well, that's like 2 first names combined together. That doesn't make Michael John. What? Well, that doesn't make sense.
It's trust me, I've heard of names similar to this. It's a British thing.
And I did comment about how he looks like a Darwin ripoff because of his very long beard. No, I'm not. I'm a Darwin ripoff.
I think I do.
Yes.
It's one of the defining aspects of Darwin, though. So he encounters Rook using the name of Jones from the University of Wales. So he's like, oh, it's my friend Jones. I'm going off to Dr. Benet's. He's going to do a thing. That's cool. And he's like, oh, that's cool. So Rook takes the professor's card, gives some drugged Napoleon brandy, and then enters the grounds with being disguised as him. So basically he's like, I'm going to knock you out, take your card, and be like, well, what's the purpose in a card-based system if you don't even, like, use the card when he enters? Because as such, he ends up entering. But it's like, okay, that's hilarious.
Well, they just ask him, are you Dr. Michael John? He goes, yep. And here's a
so
card
he can
that
be like,
says...
hey,
yeah.
are you George Washington? Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. Well,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, George Washington.
Right this way. You showed him your psychic paper, and it
Do you want to see the First Amendment, the original printing?
Right, exactly. Well, of course, right this way.
Of course, right this way. And he immediately burns it because they let him in.
It's got a treasure map on the back of the Constitution. I have to go find it.
Was that a Night at the Museum or whatever?
Oh, no, that was National Treasure with
National Treasury. I get that one confused because they both have museums.
Yeah, wow, lots of museum movies. The one question that I had was, okay, now the rules of this movie is it has to be like near pitch black, near dark, right? Because they have it where it's at night and he's coming there.
Are you saying there's like some day for night stuff?
Well, he kind of, but he's not glowing. So it has to be like quote pitch black for him to glow.
Yeah, it's like, what's the threshold of darkness you have there? I do agree that that's a bit shady. Where it's like, oh, did dim light make him slightly glow?
Or not very shady as
if he hides in a shadow, does he glow the same as like tan color? I guess.
Right. I don't know. What's the people at the front? What's their passive perception? Should they make a roll for that? I don't know.
That is a D&D junkie, I guess.
Yeah. How are they gonna know? How are they gonna know? I don't know. He totally. They failed the roll. He got in.
So he gets in, and Benet leaves his guests to make final adjustments in his laboratory. And thus Rook bursts in through the back door and kills Dr. Benet. They have like a whole confrontation, and then he kills him.
They throw the switches at midnight. The lights go out. He glows. Oh. Turn out the lights, and I'll glow. Oh, Bella. Ciao, Bella. Oh, ciao, Bella.
My wife?
What does that mean?
It means goodbye. It means goodbye in Italian.
So this is the part where we actually started watching again, because we had to pause for the day and then come back to it another night, which is actually not too much of the movie. It's only like 5-10 minutes of it, but it's an interesting bit in of itself. It wraps things up really weirdly. As I talked about, it's like the ending is like oddly sort of like confusing in a way.
Okay, how so? Well, I mean, explain it, and I'll ask you.
So when the clock strikes midnight, Mother Ruth arrives, which is like, she's sort of like girl bossing her way up, and that, like, you wouldn't expect it's like, oh, Mother Ruth has an important spot in the story and, like, does things. So they throw the master switch, and all goes dark. And Janusz finds Diana as he ascends the stairs, his hands and face glowing, and he can't bring himself to kill her, but is still intent on killing her husband. And they see a glowing handprint on Dr. Benet's body once they discover it. And this is where Dr. Rook runs into his mother, actually, as he leaves Diana's room. So this is the ultimate reveal moment. She's actually here. Mother Rook is here. And everyone can see that they're on the stairwell. And Janusz prepares to inject himself with the counteractive, the cure. But Mother Rook conveys more motherly wisdom to him, saying, "My son, you've broken the first law of science." And then she smashes the antidote in the syringe with her cane, leaving all hope for her son in pieces on the floor. So it's like, what is the first law of science?
Yeah,
okay,
we looked
we can
this
go
up.
to.
We tried.
We can go to the first law of thermodynamics.
It's not the first law of thermodynamics, but actually the definition of that was very interesting. I don't think that's what they were referring to.
Like the first law of thermodynamics was something like, like energy can't be destroyed or like created. It like has to be like transferred into a different state. But then it's like, the Newton's first law, which is like, I don't know, push something and it'll push back. Or
it was an object in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside force or something. Yeah.
But it's like, what is the first law of science? That's like the scriptwriter's only thing where it's like, what is the first law of science? Is it like be morally upstanding, I guess?
Well, I said it was like I was like, is she referring to the Hippocratic Oath where you say one of them is parts of it says first do no harm, but that's for doctors. That's for like medical doctors.
But I guess be morally upstanding is the first law of science, or like just don't break science's bounds. I guess
don't be bad. I mean, let's put it this way. I think that she is that this is something she believes. I don't think it's actually codified in the movie or codified officially what the first law of science is.
Yeah, but the thing is, after she says this, he's beginning to fall apart in front of her eyes, disintegrating into ash. And as such, Janusz concurs with her statement. And after saying his goodbyes, he jumps out the window, turning into a flaming cloud of smoke. And Diana and Ronald live happily ever after, and Mother Rook assures all Janusz Rook is dead, but part of him will go on eternally working for humanity. So it's like, this ending is pretty whack, where it's like, not only does Mother Rook come in, introduce the first law of science, which we don't know exactly what it is, it's probably really just be morally upstanding, and then he goes like, okay, yeah, I believe you, and then he like straight up jumps out the window.
Well, the building was no smoking, and so he had to go outside to smoke.
But then there's like this happy ending for like him, where it's like, he may be dead, but he's going on to work for humanity, and it's what?
I think what she's referring to is that the science that actually has helped people from blindness, that's going to continue on, because Dr. Benet knew about how to do this, and he was doing this in the movie, and so the techniques are actually written down, I'm sure, and the equipment used is written down. So, I think that's what she's meaning.
But Dr. Benet was the one who actually went into the healing process of the part, though, who continued his work, sort of, though, again, he is dead. But this is the weirdest ending we've had so far, where it's like, you don't expect Mother Rook to come in at the end of a usual Universal picture, so that's interesting. And then he just like goes, okay, yes, I'm sorry, goodbye, I agree with you. He's like, I agree with you, goodbye, and then he just straight up jumps out the window.
Well, I think it's more he realizes he was wrong. I think, and it takes seeing his mother, which.
But why did he even do this all in the first place? We don't really know. He kills people who were innocent and didn't even do anything to him, or in the movie at all, really. They just got introduced and said, "How do you do?" Really, what did you think? What did you think of this movie overall?
I thought that it was an interesting excursion. These are movies that like I said, they're like an hour long or so. So they get in, they get what they want to do. You experience the weirdness of these movies, and then they're just gone. They move on, and they leave some memory in your mind, but they're not like these super classics that you remember for decades. They're just good and fun, and they're good to watch. But
this is an interesting study into like, okay, you see this film and then it's like you analyze it and you go like, what is going on here? You have all these pieces that don't really come together, and you have like things that happen that like don't really have like a understanding to like where, and then like the events of this movie come together in like a weirdly interesting way. I'll say interesting, and then it's just. It's hard to describe, like, seeing this movie, but as I said before, it doesn't seem to be, like, a cheesy movie. It's just that the script is what makes it kind of wacky.
Well, it's weird, and I thought I found it, kind of cool for a little bit. I thought it was funny to just where they were going with the story.
And it was another fun Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff movie. It's our second we've done so far.
Not very well known, though. I think that when people mention it, they don't mention that one as much as they mention
when
others.
they mention science fiction movies, they don't mention this movie. However, I think I might know one that they will mention, which is our next picture, which is Things to Come, which, if you like Metropolis and 2001: A Space Odyssey, but it's a movie from the mind of H.G. Wells himself, you're gonna like this movie. I'm probably gonna say that a million times in the next episode.
And it's probably not as well known as War of the Worlds and Time Machine, which we'll see later.
And we'll discuss why in the next episode that happens.
Yes, but H.G. Wells, the thing that I like about him is also a thing that can kind of turn off some people to him, is he's a very political guy, and he likes to work his economic theories and his political theories. He's into social sciences, so he works those things into the movies.
And this is very particularly political.
It is, and this is what I like. I like a movie. I like it when it has a drama, it has characters, it has a narrative. If the movie is just like you said, like a TED Talk, it's really, even though it might have good ideas in it, it's not a movie. It's just a documentary.
Which is why we do have this movie, which came after, which sort of adds that story in.
Okay, excellent. I'm super looking forward to talking.
I'm looking forward to it too. Honestly, it's going to be a very interesting, like this excursion into another H.G. Wells story. But I'm looking forward to what the movie's actually going to be like, actually.
I'm starting to break apart, and there's smoke coming out of my clothes. I think I'm going to go jump out the window. Is that cool?
Yes, though don't actually. We're just saying that because it's the end of the episode. Catch us next time for another amazing episode, Things to Come. It's going to be really great. All the things that are coming.
Yep. Thank you for joining us on Cinematic Fantastic. Hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. Click here and here for some more excellent content. Hope you'll enjoy it. See you soon.